operations here at YPC Media. I also had our marketing efforts as an organization. I've been in the marketing field for 10 years, and I'm extremely excited to start this series of webinars for YPC Media. Here today, we also have Danielle Henderson, our Vice President of YPC Media. She's here to field questions in our Q&A. If you haven't found that spot already, it's at the bottom of your screen. There's also a poll in there if you guys want to participate. She'll be answering and fielding questions as you guys put those in. And last but not least, we have Ken Collins joining us today as our expert of AI. Ken is our Director of Research and Development. Ken has an extensive career in the field of technology, as well as research and development, specifically how it relates to marketing, small business. His entire career has been dedicated to entrepreneurship, connecting people to leveraging technologies, and making advancements for small business owners. In his 14 years with YPC Media, he has created and helped to implement countless technologies to drive better customer experiences, sales growth, and marketing consistencies. If business listing platforms, custom CRMs, internal dialers, you name it, Ken has done it, created it, and he's been researching AI for years. He's been at the forefront of helping YPC Media stay ahead of our curve in regards to education and integration. So Ken, we're so excited for you to be joining us and sharing your knowledge with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's dive right in, because I know we have a short amount of time today, but I think we want to start with what's our current state of AI? How did it come to be, and why is it such a hot topic right now?
Oh, what's the current state? So, I mean, as far as mass adoption goes, it's definitely in its infancy. I mean, many people probably think that AI is about 2 or 3 years old at the point. It's actually like well over 70 years old. In the 50s, Alan Turing kind of came up with this concept of machine learning, and by 1955, John McCarthy had coined the phrase artificial intelligence. If he did not coin the phrase, he definitely made it popular. Both of these guys, depending on who you ask, are considered the father of AI. So there's 2 fathers of AI, I guess. As far as like where I got my start, about 20 years ago, it was kind of popular to create apps on Facebook. I don't know if anybody remembers those days. People were throwing cows at each other and stuff. I developed a Facebook app using the Alice bot, which at the time was an AI that was using natural language processing that could create a chat bot with it. The Alice bot didn't know much. It only stored as much information as you could put into its database. So if you didn't have a big budget for a big database, it really didn't have a lot of information in there. But what it did really well is it chatted with people and it remembered the conversations it has. So what was funny, it was an interesting side effect of doing this. When I put it on Facebook, I was expecting to plug in a whole bunch of facts and answer all these questions that people were having, but most people were just goofing off with it. And it became a much better gossip than an actual fact generator. It basically, if you asked it a question it didn't know, it'd say, oh, I don't know the answer to that, but Sally told me this about something else. And it would just start gossiping. And within like a couple of months, it had a lot of gossip about a bunch of people. And it actually kind of came into a place where I was like, I'm not sure if I should have this thing on, because it was regurgitating people's information that they had shared with the bot without knowing their information was then going to be told to somebody else. And then since we're all connected through social, it might even be one of their friends. Anyways, fast forward. I mean, that was 20 years ago, 50 years over after the concept had been created of AI. Fast forward to the last 2 or 3 years, and this is where the general public now gets to use AI. You don't have to be a computer geek anymore. You don't have to be a software developer. It really opened the door to people who had barely touched computers could now leverage the power of AI. And so again, if you ask most people, they probably think AI is about 2 or 3 years old. And not just my prediction, but most people predict in the next 2 or 3 years, there'll be more advancement in AI than the last 70.
Yeah, and that's a great point that AI is now at the fingertips of everyone. Over in the polls, we actually were asking what platform most people are using right now. The hottest response is ChatGPT, but can you take us through some of the options that are available to most all users now?
Sure, yeah. I mean, talking about the large or the natural language processors, you're talking about Bard, rebranded as Gemini, ChatGPT, and Cloud is another one that a lot of the geeks like. And, you know, I think there's pros and cons to each one of them, but as far as from a small business owner's perspective, or if you're an end user, I think whichever one that's easily accessible to you that you've started using, that's the one to really use. I think AI is meant to be used. So use the tools that are available to you. I personally use the paid version of ChatGPT, which I really like. I also develop on OpenAI's API. So that's why I use GPT more than I use Gemini, for example. If I didn't pay for GPT, I'd probably lean towards using Gemini because it has built-in search capabilities that keeps the information that it has to its at its fingertips really really new. Like basically ChatGPT has old data in it, and Bard or Gemini is actually searching the internet. Now, if you're using the paid version of GPT, you of course get Bing search built in, and you can fix that problem. Um,
Yeah, that's great. And over in our poll, it is continuously growing for ChatGPT. I think that was really the early adopter here, so it's been most popular. But really, I want to dive into what everyone can something people can take away today from this webinar is how can a small business owner start implementing AI if they haven't already into their day-to-day of their business?
Yeah, first I wanted to address the poll results. So it's not shocking that well, I think we're at 73% of people are using GPT right now. I just recently, the other day, saw a chart and it had like 50 of the top AI applications being used and the actual adoption rate. And the 50th place person was getting over, I think it was 5 million signups, new users per month. So, I mean, these are all big applications. And most of the applications were a blip on the radar compared to ChatGPT. And ChatGPT was the back end to about 40% of those different applications. Similarly, other people using the OpenAI API to develop on. So again, it's not shocking that in this group we're seeing it heavily weighted to ChatGPT. Currently, it's winning the public adoption AI race. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the best one out there, but again, like I mentioned earlier, whichever one you're using is the best one for you. Now, how could small business owners implement AI today? Some of the low-hanging fruit is to leverage your existing vendors. So most of your vendors, especially your software vendors, are already building AI into their solutions. You're probably seeing email after email after email flooding your inbox about what your vendor can do regarding AI. I suggest as low-hanging fruit, especially for people in business development, people trying to introduce new products into their offerings, that they actually answer some of those vendor emails and maybe take a half hour to learn about what the vendor is doing in AI. A lot of this stuff is actually free to you, or you're already paying for it. Sometimes you do have to pay an upcharge to use their AI services. I'd start learning the use cases your vendor provides too, to find out if those use cases that they're talking about are actually relevant to your business, if you're actually going to get anything out of it. And another thing you could do, which I'll probably talk about multiple times, is that adding chatbots or AI powered forms to your websites. Those are definitely things that are available to you today that weren't available to you maybe a year or two ago, where you can get a chatbot that's answering questions about your product knowledge. It can even go over pricing with prospects. It can answer a lot of your customer service related questions that maybe get asked a lot that are currently taking up human resources to do. So those are definitely some of the like low hanging fruits for where
We're seeing
businesses could
a lot of
start.
that. Yeah, a lot of websites now, I feel like automatically you get in there and a chat pops up and is asking how you're doing today and wants to know what you're here for. So those are great tips, definitely to utilize some of that. I know you also have some recommendations too for people that we could start listening to that are keeping up with all things AI, besides yourself, obviously. But I know you had a couple of recommendations of some people that you could follow to learn more.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the websites you go to now. That I mean, soon the website you're going to visit, it's going to say, "How can I help you today?" And that'll be almost the only thing that it says on its homepage. It'll have all kinds of different landing pages and entry points to get into the website. But if you just come to the homepage, you have no idea about the company, it's most likely just going to ask you the question, "What can I help you with today?" And then through the question and answer, I mean, a few basic questions, you can learn a real lot about your company. I learned this from Christian Ward from Yext. He's a data scientist over at Yext. And I really recommend following him if you're a small business owner, especially if you're lean towards data and the importance of data at all. He talks heavily about that. If you're more of an entrepreneur or a small business owner and you really want to just know the like nuts and bolts about how you can leverage AI and how you could like implement it today, I'd recommend somebody like Mark Degrassi. He talks more from the entrepreneur and the salesperson minded concepts. So again, kind of following the people that you can resonate with. And then if you guys are on LinkedIn, I highly recommend following Ruben Hassid. He's someone who tests AI for a living, and then he goes and posts his tests as his content on LinkedIn. And so this can do a couple things. It can introduce you to new AI tools that you wouldn't have found on your own, and can save you countless hours evaluating which tool is best. So a lot of times once he's introducing a tool, he's actually compared it against 2 or 3 of the other competitors in the space. And so if you're needing something for copywriting, or you're needing something for image generation, or you need something for maybe video editing or video creation, then you could kind of go to his channel, or I don't know, his feed, and you could learn quite a bit of things and save you a lot of time. And if nothing else, it's fun. I've probably hopped onto no less than 20 different AI tools just to test them out, the free versions of them. Be careful, AI can get really expensive real fast. It's pretty cheap, but if you buy a subscription to every person you come across, next thing you know, you have a Netflix subscription, you're paying Spectrum or Time Warner, you're paying for Hulu Plus, and it's the same thing in AI. You could have 20 different tools that you're paying for real quick at 20 to 50 bucks a month. So leverage your free tools first, leverage your vendors and what they're doing, and then you can get into some of these paid tools that they're recommending.
Yeah, and I mean, you can ask ChatGPT just about anything, but it is good to hear from a pro here what we could be doing. We've gotten a lot of questions recently about, you feel kind of free-willed with ChatGPT, but you really truly got to be careful what information you do put in there. Can you give us kind of some of the red flags or the no-nos to these AI platforms?
Yeah, so I mean, you'll probably hear the big no-no is going to be relating around data privacy, intellectual property, basically your secret sauce, and your consumers' data. So anytime that you're sharing with AI, maybe your business metrics, information about your customers, you're really going to want to make sure that you keep it to aggregate information that if you were to say, of the 7,200 people that we service, 54% of them do this, as says AI, that's fine. But you wouldn't want to say Susie does this, Sally does this. So you wouldn't want to put in your personally identifiable information into AI, for example. If you're using AI for developing, you don't want to be passing your API keys. You won't want to pass any of your usernames and passwords, for example, that might be sitting there right in your code and that you're asking ChatGPT to help you develop. So the documents that you upload, you want to sanitize them first before you go and upload your document and say, hey, I have this document and I'm trying to create a business plan from this document. Can you help me out? You might want to call yourself Acme Marketing, Acme Plumbing, Acme Insurance. Give yourself a nice generic thing and then go after the fact and edit your document so that it says something like YPC Media Marketing instead of Acme Marketing.
Yes.
Other things to worry about with AI is that it hallucinates. That's the term for giving bad answers. So most AI is going to be best used by somebody who's knowledgeable about the subject or the activity they're trying to use AI for. For example, if you're a search engine marketer, you're probably going to be a lot better at doing keyword research than somebody who isn't. They might not even know to ask it for keyword research. But if you're an accountant and you're throwing in some math problems to ChatGPT, you definitely want to check the math. Math is one of the things that it's good at talking. It's good at conversations. And you would think because it's a computer, it'd be good at math, but sometimes math nuances get lost in translation, if you will, and it can spit out answers that aren't factual. So just make sure that if you're going to generate that next big document that you're going to go share with your whole entire team, you've read it first, you're knowledgeable about your subject enough to spot the mistakes. so that you can go, whoa, that's a flat out lie, or oh, that doesn't sound like what I know. Maybe I should go double check that. Because if you do get a hallucination, you can pretty easily just go right back to the chat you were on with the and say, hey, that's not exactly right. Could you, pause for a minute, dig a little deeper and get me the right answer? And if there is a right answer out there, we'll try to go get that for you. If it doesn't know the answer, it might say, as an AI tool, I don't know how to give you that answer. But definitely you want to watch to make sure that the information that you're using generated by these AIs is as factual as you believe it to be.
Yeah, it's definitely learning from everything that we as humans input into that. So I think as small business owners, one of the most important things to every business is our customers. And, how can we use AI to give our customers a better experience with us? I know we talked about, adding bots to our websites, but do you have any other tips for enhancing that customer experience?
Yeah, so we just talked about it a few moments ago. In the future, you're going to see a lot of websites moving towards that. All that top of the fold content's going to move down and below the fold, and there'll just be a chat bot or a prompt that says, "How can I help you?" And you're gonna see more and more sites adopting this. And maybe it's not right for your website. Maybe it's not right for your experience at the moment or your user base at the moment. So maybe you keep your website the same as it was yesterday for a few more days, and you could add like a chat bot down in the right hand corner where people are used to engaging with a human chat. You could have an artificial intelligent chat that's hooked up to your knowledge base and your knowledge graph and has all kinds of data points about your business and can have smart conversations about with your customers. AI forms are another great way to get information from a customer, give them a lot of information back, and then find out during their conversation with the form or with the chatbot what it is the customer is really looking for. So, for example, if you have a conversation with a chatbot and you show up to a website and it says, "Hey, how can I help you today?" and you say, "Hey, I'm looking to get some sneakers," the next logical question would be like, "Great, what kind of sneakers, or what are you going to use the sneakers for?" "Oh, I'm going to go run a half marathon." Great, I know exactly the subset of sneakers in our database that are perfect for half marathons, so we can start having a conversation about these types of sneakers. You've just skipped so much of what we in marketing have been doing forever, analyzing keywords, analyzing CTAs and click-through ratios and all the different metrics that we're trying to learn about our customers to find out how many people like marathon sneakers or how many people want jumping shoes. I don't think jumping shoes is a thing, but you guys get what I'm saying. If somebody came up to your site and said, "Hey, I'm looking for jumping shoes," and you don't currently have jumping shoes, you might start to go, "Hey, I've seen 20 people ask for jumping shoes now. Maybe I should find out who makes jumping shoes and start incorporating them into my product, or maybe invent jumping shoes."
There you go. And we do have one last question here before we get into our open QA for the last 10 minutes or so. But as a small business owner, but also personally, how can we use AI to just enhance our overall efficiency and productivity in our day-to-day lives?
So this is a good one. So I think I'm gonna answer it kind of from the Chat GPT. It sounds like a lot of people understand Chat GPT in our audience. Um, it's great for things like ideation, coming up with ideas. Maybe you have a business idea and you want to flesh it out. Maybe you want to come up with a business or marketing plan for that idea. Within moments, you'll have what other businesses struggle to get done in years. I remember one of my first days working with Chat GPT. I made a marketing plan for our company, YPC Media. We've spent the first 13 years of me working here having not even had a fully fleshed out business plan. And then 4 minutes later, we had one, and it wasn't wrong. It actually had all of the stuff, and it wasn't wrong in a few different ways. One, it wasn't wrong in all of what it's suggesting, and then secondly, surprisingly, it wasn't wrong in what we were actually doing. Come to find out that ChatGPT is much like an MBA in almost every single possible scenario. So it knows what a marketing company does. It knows what an insurance company does. It knows what a plumbing company does. So if you ask it pretty basic questions, it actually has a wealth of knowledge behind it to go and say, hey, if you're Acme Plumbing, I know that you probably have plumbing fixtures. You probably do 24-hour service. You probably, and it could rattle off 17 things. And whatever things you don't do, and it will probably ask you, like, what's your differentiator? What do you do different than other businesses? So they can work that into your business plan, because that's what all business plans should do, is show why you're different than the next guy down the street. Chat GPT has a great way of starting you out with what everybody seems to do. What do you do differently? And you can say, hey, I don't really do 24-hour service because all of my customers are blah, blah, blah. And you could go and have ChatGPT refine your business plans really easily. You can also analyze contracts. One of my favorites, and I got a coworker to actually adopt AI by saying, hey, you need to go, because she would always shoot me a message to say, hey, does this email sound a little bit too snarky? I'll use snarky. There's words I could use. And I'd read it and I'd say, yeah, you might want to think about rewriting that. That's what I used to say. Now I'd say, hey, why don't you throw that same email into ChatGPT. Remember, sanitize first. If you have people's names, all that kind of stuff, don't want to throw up the whole entire email with customer information in it. But go ahead and pop that message that you were planning on writing and ask ChatGPT to rewrite it for you. You don't even have to say rewrite it more professionally. You don't have to say make it less snarky. It already knows, and it will actually even start off, very politely saying, yeah, this email sounds a little bit pointed, and maybe you want to make this a little nicer, and here's what I would suggest. And it will rewrite your email. If you are mad about stuff, which you probably were in a snarky email, you probably said 3 or 4 things that, oh yeah, I got you on this one. It'll actually bullet point those out. It'll make logical sense of all of them, no matter which order you put them in your document. It's really great at doing things like that. And so if you've never used ChatGPT before or any other AI before, I would highly suggest, if you get customer service emails, if you get vendor contracts or vendor emails that they ask you things that might be a little bit tricky to respond to, and you earmark them for later, and then you don't go and reply back to that person for like a week and a half. That was like last year, the year before, 2-3 years ago. That's what everybody was doing. They were earmarking something that they couldn't answer today because it required too much thought, energy, and effort to reply in a couple minutes. So they'd say, oh, I'll get back to this. And then they never do. And then you have a full inbox of messages that you flagged for later. Well, if you start to embrace AI, you can start to actually take those hard to answer emails, tell ChatGPT while you're having a hard time answering it or replying to it, and it'll spit out a reply that you can tailor to your use and get back to the person. It'll save a lot of hours. It'll save frustration with getting back and forth, especially with customers. Customers don't like long wait times before getting answers. So if you're putting something aside to answer a customer because it was a difficult question to answer, try leveraging AI and you'll be pleasantly surprised at the results.
That's great advice. And I think my takeaway from that is ChatGPT can help us sound nicer in emails. I do want to save some time here to get to some open QA from the audience. Danielle, do you have some questions for Ken?
I do. So a few questions have come in. And the first question, Katie, I think either you or Ken could answer. It's, how is AI being used on marketing campaigns like Google Ads at YPC Media?
Oh, all right. I can be the expert here on this. So Google Ads campaigns, I mean, we see one of the pieces that we asked was Gemini is one of the AI tools that you can now use. So Google's an early adopter. They've been using AI forever. But internally at YPC, we use any AI to really do, like Ken was saying, keyword research, location targeting research. But Google, specifically Google Ads, does have tools integrated into the system to help you create ads, create headlines that are going to be catchy for your customers, as well as generate campaigns from there. So that's our team's been using that AI as soon as it's become available in Google, as long as it's been available. Other platforms like Facebook have also been integrating it, and they all are just trying to give more tools to make it easier to run campaigns, which is great. But you do have to have that human still putting in the information and making sure that it's accurate for your business. And all of them are based on what industry and what your website looks like. So a lot of what Ken talked about being, stemming from your website, it's truly the most important piece for your business.
That makes complete sense. And the next question is one I think that people ask often and talks about that human element. What jobs do we expect AI to replace in the next 5 to 10 years, if any?
Oh, that's a really tricky question. I wish I prepared for this one because I do have an answer that I had written before about this. But as I was writing the answer the first time that I was answering this question, I had a little bit of back and forth, and it was with one of the guys that I recommended here, Christian Ward from Yext. We were talking about some of the jobs that probably wouldn't get replaced versus the ones that would get replaced. So anybody who has a repeatable task is is possibly replaceable, but that's not new. Machines have been doing that forever. If you were somebody who just picked something up and put something down over here and pick something up and put something down, they'd find a machine that would pick the thing up and put something down. Now it's getting into, so for example, in our marketing space, some of the things that we have to go and do extra for our customers, keyword research, negative keyword research, creating ad copy variations, those are going to be button pushes. Once you get one ad copy in there, it's going to be like, hey, do you want like 16 more versions of it and do some A/B testing against us? This would have taken a long time to set up in the past. So you may have 2 or 3 people on the team that are responsible for getting the A/B testing done, getting the different ad variations and stuff. Now that one person on the team is probably going to be able to do all 3 of those tasks, and in a lot quicker fashion. And it's going to just be much more efficient, in most cases. So there's going to be, if you're sitting in a job where that generally takes 3 or 4 people on your team to get something done, you could consider that it might be something that one person might do in the future. It doesn't mean that humans themselves will go away, and the job might not 100% go away, but you'll definitely see everybody, I think, in every industry is going to see the impact of how jobs are going to shift. So it's going to create jobs that didn't exist a couple of years ago. I mean, there's a job called an AI prompter, which already might be like an outdated job because everybody's figured out how to prompt it for themselves. And I'm a strong believer that you should figure out how to prompt for yourself. But you can pay somebody, some pretty decent money to come in and prompt AI to do stuff for you. That's a job now. It didn't even used to exist as a job. So there'll be new stuff as people start to lose their jobs or shift jobs, I should say. What we'll also see is people in service-based industries, which seemingly can't be replaced by AI, like say you are a plumber, or say you're a roofing contractor, or one of the service trades. You might think that you're pretty insulated from AI, and the truth is that as the people that are using AI now to basically replace themselves in their current jobs are going to shift into some other job, they may say, hey, you know what? I'd like to be a woodworker. I'd like to be a cabinet maker. I'd like to be a plumber. Let me go leverage all of this information that I just took from the corporate world, from learning AI as an example. As my job was phasing out, I must have or should have at least picked up some of these AI tools, different ways to run a business that maybe the plumber isn't currently implementing. So now you have the plumber who's been there for 20 years competing with a guy who just came out of the corporate world, who might have some money, might even have some connection with venture capitalists, might have a business plan 4 minutes after he came up with the idea that he wants to be a plumber. And he has all of these things to his advantage that you don't have, other than the 20 years experience of being a plumber. So he hires somebody with 20 years of experience being a plumber and puts them to work. And he's your competition right down the street from you. He has whiz-bang website, AI tools integrated into it. He's got a marketing background, or he comes from some sort of professional background that might have been things that the plumber in the past would not have been typically doing in his regular day-to-day business. And that's gonna really shift things for everybody. It doesn't mean that the plumber is going to go away. He's obviously going to have a job as well. It's just going to change the dynamics it's going to be an ever changing landscape as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is it's going to increase productivity. So it might change jobs a little bit. New jobs might emerge, and it's going to make the space a little bit more competitive for people to enter into. But overall, I think that what you're saying is it's just shift in how we do business, not necessarily a full elimination as we move forward. Is that correct?
That's in not just my opinion, but other people I follow has the same sort of opinion. If you are somebody who's worth employing now, you're probably going to be somebody who's worth employing in the future. I'd strongly recommend getting yourself knowledgeable about AI, getting practice in AI, using it in your personal life as well as your professional life, so it becomes natural to you to use some of the AI tools. Some of you guys are already familiar with like Alexa or Google Home assistants. Those a couple of years ago were considered AI. Now most people who use ChatGPT or Gemini would actually consider those devices to be pretty dumb. It's basically a glorified alarm clock. It sets timers for you and it plays music, right? So in the future, I'm going to guess that same Alexa bot is going to be, programmed in with a much more conversational AI, similar to what we're seeing in ChatGPT.
And Katie, I know there are more questions to come, but I know we're kind of out of time, so I'm going to let you wrap up.
Yeah.
And I'll put some notes about how you can get answers to those questions after the webinar.
Yeah, so Danielle will put in a link here that we can address more questions after the webinar. As always, you can visit ypcmedia.com/webinars to see anything upcoming. And then you can follow us on social media. Those are also all linked on our website. But thank you so much, Ken, for coming. We appreciate all the tips and tricks today about AI and getting us all started and ending the week out here with some knowledge. So we appreciate all of you joining. Danielle's going to send that link, if she didn't already, in the Q&A, and we will see you all next time. Thanks so much.
You all.